might come off. See. Good evening. I'm rather getting exhausted myself, so I try to bear with me as I ramble along here. My talk today is accompanied by an article. I invite you to look me up my website and read my specific article. It's very extensive and it's just a depository of links referencing the topic I am discussing. I am worried. I'm worried a lot about the future in the next 50 or so years that we might all in some form be alive. If we're lucky, we might live longer than that. As a side note, I'm very grateful to being invited to the conference, and I want to thank Vladan and the team for putting this all together. I want to invite all of you to literally hug him. So find Vladan, find the organizing team, and extensively hug them. Thank them in my name and thank them personally, but it's been a great experience. So regarding the future, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is, of course, utopia. Utopia is the world we all want. This world we're probably not going to get, but it's the world we would like to have. It's like Star Trek, but better. It's a world where we're going to live longer, a world where we're all going to be healthier, a world where we'll all be happier. We will have to work less. That's the ideal world we all would like to see. The bad one, that's the world that's going to collapse. That's the world where there's going to be pervasive conflict all over. There's going to be poverty. There's going to be disease, borders are going to break down, immigration, you know, all the cliches. The mixture of that, the mixture of high technology, advancement, mixed with negativity is of course cyberpunk. Who here has read several major cyberpunk novels? Not that many actually. Well, to summarize, cyberpunk started out probably with the movie Blade Runner. The movie Blade Runner, who here has seen movie Blade Runner? Oh, that's a little bit more. When I watched the movie Blade Runner at a younger age, I was mesmerized by its beauty. I thought that would actually be a beautiful world to live in. The older I get, I started to see the hidden signs in Blade Runner, how miserable that world is. People in the world led mostly pointless lives. It was contaminated, it was ugly, it was dismal. There were industrial processes going on everywhere, so the atmosphere might have been pretty miserable. Cyberpunk is a mixture of those two elements. Technology advancing mostly out of control, and William Gibson is one author, and Bruce Sterling is another author who really gets that message home. Technology gets completely out of control, and on the other hand, there is poverty. People don't have a clear-cut goal in life. This is best exemplified by the heroic figures or the anti-heroes in cyberpunk. The anti-hero Molly Millions, that's the chief, the bitch character in the novel Neuromancer, has no remorse. She has a serious empathy problem. She was a former prostitute. She kills people just to have fun. That's not a hero. It's maybe someone we can all empathize with. We like to be powerful, we like to be game characters, we like to kill at random, but it's not a world that is actually functioning in any way. Now, if you look at the world we are going right now, we have to take into account several major processes. I made a list of 7. That list is by no means complete. I could add other ones, but the 7 ones are the major ones. The first one is, of course, the problem with money. The financial system right now, and this is a very cyberpunk thing, the financial system right now is completely broken. So if we look at the next 20 or 30 or 40 years, and probably a lot sooner, can I have a sip of something please quickly? Is there yeah, thank you. Mouth is getting dry. Thank you very much. The financial system right now is based on debt. If you study the banking sector right now, is that you learn that for most Western countries, all money is generated out of nothing. It is literally a transaction on a bank note or on a computer screen. There is no coverage of that money. The only theoretical covering of that money is debt. So to pay back all the debt, you would need more money than the debt is worth. There are excellent videos explaining this on YouTube. This system is very close to failure. There are systemic reasons why this is close to failure. The enormous state debt being one of them. Second major problem in the world right now is oil. Oil is running out. No matter what they try to tell you, oil is running out. That doesn't mean that in 50 years there will be no more oil. The problem is that the oil in the ground will be dirty, full of sulfur, full of heavy metals, and it will be expensive. Coal is clearly not a solution, because that's the third problem. The third problem is we're slowly cooking away our atmosphere. We are changing the way our world functions. The climate is changing. The way our atmosphere itself changes. The heat distribution of the planet is changing. Ice caps are affected. There are a lot of industry interest in trying to make clear to you that is not the case. Oil has major vested interest, and as oil prices increase, those vested interests increase. The amount of money available to try and convince you there's no problem is also increasing. Let me check, so I have the complete list ready. Yep. Money, petrochemical problems, atmosphere. It's a cliché to call atmospheric problems global warming. The term is a little bit of contaminated, and it's a difficult term to use, but atmospheric problems, global warming, of course, it touches biodiversity, wildlife extinction, whales dying, ice bears sitting on melting shelves. Another more subtle problem in our world is complexity. We build things, and then politicians neglect to repair or replace them. Bridges in many countries are falling apart at an ever-passing increasing rate. This is a very negative thing. It also extends to your education. Many of you are very young, a lot younger than me, and your education basically sucks. The educational system which is created right now, which is being sustained right now at an ever-increasing price, is literally rearing you for docility, for being a very decent citizen, but even more importantly, it's raising you for jobs that in several years will no longer exist in large part. In large part because those jobs are going to be replaced, and as our one of our previous speaker already alluded to, because technology itself is replacing jobs. And that brings me to my next major point, which is again a new economic concept, technological unemployment. I alluded to this in Belgrade. I have a standing bet with a techno-progressive website and the Singularity Hub. And the idea is, I made a prediction that for every year, probably already for several years in the past, but for every year in the future, there will be 1% less jobs. So that means in 10 years, 10% more unemployment, and so forth. The logical end conclusion is that somewhere this century, there will be almost no more jobs. There might be some artists, there might be some professors or surgeons or whatever that still do very specific scientific research or very application-directed research, but fast food industries are gone probably in less than 5 or 10 years. Service industries are gone. That is unthinkable in the economic system we're in. There's just no way to cope with it. There's no way to liberate something like enormous amounts of welfare for unemployed populations over 30%. And if you thought that was an outlandish idea, several years ago people thought, or economists assumed that massive population of over 30% would be unthinkable. Now it's most throughout the European Union, it's commonplace. And that always means a certain amount of unemployment, means that youth unemployment is almost certainly double that. Overpopulation is a problem, not by itself. People in Bangladesh or other third world, developed world regions consume very little. They're not a problem. Their grandchildren would be the problem if we had the resources for them to consume, because they all want a Western lifestyle. They all want a rich and opulent lifestyle like you have in their comparison with them. There is technically no way to guarantee the poor of the world that they're not going to have a somewhat dignified living standard. This is a world we're building which is completely cyberpunk, but there's a silver lining to this story. the last one, of course, is politics. The political system, as many speakers before have made abundantly clear, is broken. Why is the political system broken? There is an excellent video about how the electoral system in America works. It's 2 stages in every election. The first stage is when the politicians are selected and groomed by funding, by sponsorship. If you don't pass that hurdle, you never get to compete in actual elections. So there is a first election where the rich of the world pay or sponsor politicians, their publicity campaigns, their staff, their whatever they need to become actual, real politicians. The movie is about tip of my tongue. I have it linked on the article, so please look it up. But it's a very insightful example of how the political system is fundamentally broken. It only favors the wealthy. There is a silver line to it. What if all these 7 would break? And they will break. The monetary system is years away from breaking. The petrochemical system is not years away from breaking, but it's clear from an article written by the German army, a think tank for the German army, wrote an article that globalism, modern diversified economies, were impossible after the year 2020 or 2025. That basically means that oil is becoming so expensive and so irrecoverable, and the bidding for oil will be so steep and so sharp. So third world countries want oil, and they don't need all that much compared to rich developed countries. The bidding will be so severe that, well, you end up with something that isn't an economy as we know it. The atmosphere, don't get me started. You all know the cliches. The complexity, bridges are collapsing. And I'll tell you where the bridges are collapsing fastest in a second. Politics, again, it's breaking. And again, I will tell you where it's breaking hardest. Where is this coming together? There's a country in the world which spends more on military budget than most countries in the world combined. That's the United States. I have a problem with Russia. I don't like the way Russia is run. With all due respect, it's a wonderful country, but the political system of Russia is broken. China, same story. The political system in China is broken. For instance, just as an example, it kills people, innocent people probably, or petty criminals, and harvests organs. There's all kinds of things wrong with China. But China and Russia are not a problem. They are to some extent corrupt, they are to some extent oligarchies, or whatever you want to call it. The problem is the combination of winning the Cold War, having an enormous amount of technological ability, having unprecedented money, printing your own dollar, and literally having the world use that dollar as an international trading standard, as the international currency for all trade. So if someone wants to buy aluminium, they use dollars. That system is breaking. United States is going to suffer very heavily from some really bad choices made during the Nixon era, abandoning the gold standard, and not coming up with some solid alternative. United States is going to fail just on this monetary system. And I'm not talking about pensions. I'm not talking about being overextended in medical care or medical investments. Petrochemical problem. As soon as the dollar crashes, as soon as the dollar no longer serves as a trade standard worldwide, they can't buy oil. They need oil for everything. The United States needs oil for agriculture, for transporting food throughout the country. They barely have a rail grid. This country needs oil desperately for everything. It needs cooking, or it needs heating oil for the northern states, which are freezing cold in winters, and it needs a lot of electricity also generated from petrochemical sources for air conditioning. It needs to pump around water just for whole cities to exist. Las Vegas, Los Angeles can't exist without the water.